Firecast, a podcast from MDM Publishing, brought to you in association with UK Fire magazine, reporting to the United Kingdom fire protection industry and fire services.
Welcome to another Firecast, where we get to discuss some of the key issues with the big players in the fire industry. I'm Paul Hutton, and in a first for our Firecast, it's my pleasure to bring you three guests in one conversation as we talk telemetry, technology and connectivity. How can innovation improve firefighter safety? And we're meeting with Kevin Tomkins, of innovative manufacturer and thought leader in first responder applications, technologies and solutions, MSA, Ted O'Brien, director of product and quality at the Fire Service College, and MDM Publishing's group editor, Duncan White. So let's start with you, Duncan. How do you think innovation can help to improve firefighter safety using new technology?
Thanks, Paul. As with all safety critical incidents, effective communication has always been key. And by improving these channels of communication with the use of technology, firefighters will be provided with the reassurance and in turn the reduction in their stress levels associated with firefighting and allowing them to focus on their key tasks. But I think it's important that we first remind ourselves what telemetry is all about. So, as always, I tend to refer back to the dictionary just to remind myself of where we are with this. So, telemetry is the process of recording and transmitting the readings of an instrument. And I think that we need to remember this as we go through today and look at how the technology and the information provided by the instruments can be used by both the firefighter during the active operation, but also by the incident commander and others within the service post-incident. So with this in mind, I'd like to turn to Ted to look at the communication issues faced with firefighters when working in heat and smoke, and to look at how telemetry can assist.
Yeah, thanks for Duncan, and thank you everyone for inviting me into the conversation. Really good question. I think within the sector, and although Paul introduced me in my role at the Fire Service College, I also have 30 years experience with Greater Manchester Fire Rescue Service. And I think that's really important in terms of recognising the history of events that have taken place in the fire sector where firefighters have got themselves into difficulty once entering that smoke-filled compartment. So historically, there has been continued issues around both the reliability of radio communications and indeed more recently telemetry. And again, as you just said, you've just described it from the dictionary, but in reality in the fire sector, what it means is that the entry control officer outside the building can remain and retain in contact with the people that have gone through the door into the smoke-filled environment. And of course, it provides certain pieces of information back, vital pieces of information. So firefighters entering the building will be considering the duration of their breathing apparatus set and then considering what activities they can carry out in the period of time they've got available to them, whilst also reminding themselves that they have to turn around and be able to make their way out the building safely with the air that's allocated to them. What telemetry allows is, of course, the entry control officer outside to assist that team in recognising when that vital time period has been taken up and indeed what they need to do in terms of making their way back outside the building. But I'll reiterate, certainly my experiences to date is that there has been quite a high level of unreliability, both on radio communications and with telemetry.
Thanks, Ted. I think that the reliability issue is something that we need to overcome within the firefighter's mind, because in the past, like you said, they've had doubts in terms of whether technology has been able to replicate tried and tested analog systems that they've used in the past. At some point, we need to put faith in new technology and move forward. With that, I'd like to look at the issue of disorientation within the working environment and how the arduous conditions is a constant safety threat to firefighters. Kevin, turning to you, how do you see technology assisting with this?
Firstly, great to be here. Honoured to be in your company, gentlemen. So thank you for that. Let me just address something Ted was saying there. Firstly, firefighters want to be connected, and it starts with the basics. We go in as a team of two. I'm connected to another firefighter. I'm going in, as Ted was saying, with a radio. I'm connected by voice. So telemetry provides firefighters with that next level of connectivity to protect their safety. And sometimes telemetry will be the only one left, as in I get separated, I've got no radio signal. So fire brigades using a manual entry control board will have some basic information, of course. With the M1 telemetry system, the ECO can literally see the firefighter breathing. You can see them speed up, you can see them slow down. The ECO can see the pressure drop in real time. So the firefighter's actual breathing rate will then present an accurate time to whistle. So that can be essential information in giving the firefighter enough time to get the job done, opposed to pulling them out early or not pulling them out early enough. And seeing, as Ted was saying, that behavioral change if a firefighter is experiencing stress, for example. So, no more manual calculations. The M1 control board is taking care of all that for you. The second point is the M1 telemetry system provides two-way communication. So firefighters can communicate with the ECO via the M1 control module in the palm of their hand. And for the entry control board, from the entry control board, the ECO can communicate with all firefighters under their supervision. So both can acknowledge each other's communication, meaning both have got peace of mind that they're connected to each other and responding to each other. And on the point of the bigger picture, when the job gets big, we may have several entry control boards going through one entry control point. We may have to set up another entry control point and to, in turn have multiple ECBs there as well. All that information is now easily collated in one place and can be viewed on a tablet or on the big screen in the incident command vehicle or even remotely, off scene. All the ECBs across every entry control point are now connected. So never before has that been possible. So now MSA can assist the officer in charge or incident commander when they need that situational awareness and faced with making some big decisions. If it's resource or strategy, we can provide some help with instant, accurate, and big picture information.
So in relation to, just touching back on one of your points there, in relation to the connectivity of the entry control boards. So if the entry control point supervisor, obviously acting as the eyes and ears for the incident commander within the BA sector, are they able to monitor all those boards at the same time from a tablet remotely on the incident ground?
Yes, that can be on the incident ground or remotely somewhere else off scene and have a complete overview of what's going on. Number of firefighters, number of entry control points, and help if necessary with situational awareness and the advice that comes from that.
Well, that leads us nicely into my next question to Ted in relation to the way in which we can use telemetry to assist the BA team when they become disorientated, lost, or heaven forbid, trapped.
Yeah, thanks for that, Duncan. I think Kevin's made some really thought-provoking points there around how perhaps most of the audience listening to this podcast may recognize telemetry right now, and in terms of the as is and the to be, because from what's just been described, having that vital information available both on scene and remotely will really, really assist fire and rescue services to pre-plan when they've got larger, more complex incidents, certainly. And there's no doubt there's also a place in low-level incidents as well, because I think what Kevin has just described is that what this system will now do is assist organizations to retain vital information around entry and egress from an incident in breathing apparatus, also supporting the entry control officers around not only how much air is left in the set, but actually how hard that firefighter is working at that moment in time. So they may have had a very easy period on access into the building, but actually when they get deeper into the building, they start to work very, very hard, and therefore their breathing rates grow rapidly, and we can start to see that their time would start to run out even quicker, and they may not recognize it. Now that information I think from what Kevin has described, is now available, and that's a huge step forward. Secondly, for more complex incidents where there may be multiple breathing apparatus entries, is there's an organisational record now, not only of entry and access from the building, but of breathing rates. And it will, for me, it will start to assist organisations in recognising the health and well-being of their staff, because we can start to recognise how people perform, what they'll recognise peaks and trends in people's performance in breathing apparatus, and certainly from the management of a complex incident, allow people to pre-plan in terms of reliefs and re-entry of firefighters into a building. So that all sounds very exciting to me.
Gents, can I just butt in and move the focus slightly on this fascinating discussion, please? Because I want to look at things from the incident commander's perspective. As far as I understand it, the incident commander keeps abreast of all the developing situation and firefighter safety from the information received via the entry control officer. However, historically, this has stopped when the incident is over. Kevin, how can technology assist firefighter health and welfare post-incident?
This is a very big point. So when we say we go in with you, you being the firefighter, we are protecting them in the right here and right now, but also collecting the data to assist in safeguarding their future health. So we know data can help to solve problems, challenges fire services have right now. And I have absolutely no doubt that the data we collect into the future will be there to serve fire services to help them solve the problems that are not even yet in focus. I'm still to this day amazed at how much my mobile phone knows about me. and all it's doing is collecting data. So post-incident reports will immediately serve up who went in, how long they went in, and all the events that happened on that timeline. So no more manual reports or manually downloading and translating data from an SCBA set. And yes, if you heard me right, for the first time, we are logging in the firefighter's identity into the M1 telemetry system. So this data is not forgotten once the board is wiped clean or turned off. And this will be for every firefighter across the entire fire service. So with that kind of data, be it over a week or 1 year or 2 to 3 years, one can start to look at the averages, make comparisons, see the highs, the lows, the trends, the tables, graphs, whichever way we want to look at it. If the chief wants to see benchmarks or baselines or best performance modeling or training opportunities or balancing the effort in the name of safeguarding firefighter safety and firefighter health, then the data is priceless. And let me say just one more thing on data. There is a massive byproduct of collecting and measuring all this data, and that's going to help the long-term health of the fire service itself. Let me explain. You see, we are collecting data on how many hours the M1 SCBA has been used. We're collecting data on how many hours the personal face mask has been used by the firefighter, the digital logbook that shows who tested the equipment and when and how often. All this data is coming into play in helping the fire service better understand the servicing requirements and maintenance scheduling of the M1. We at MSA and many of the fire services we are partners with already know that they are over servicing, over testing, and adding unnecessary cost and resource in maintaining their existing SCBA products. We can now help fire services change to doing the right things at the right time and no longer be geared to a date in time when all things have to happen at once, because that's the way it's always been done. Why is an SCBA any different to the miles we drive in our cars? We get them serviced at different times. Well, the sets within a fire service are doing different mileage, right? Well, it's different now because the fire services don't have that technology built in. It isn't there in the set that's being used right now. So the only way is to replace a service part after so many years on everything, no matter what. The M1 changes the game. So fire services can adopt a more modern service regime, reduce cost, improve efficiencies, and just have a better all-round principle to maintenance. And that can only be good for the fire service in the long term. Ultimately, improving the financial health of the fire service in question.
Thanks, Kevin. There's a number of points there that I'd like to just pick up on, going back to my experiences as a fire service officer and also back in the days of a firefighter. The feeling of relief when a BA entry control officer sees a BA team come back over the threshold of a property, having not really known exactly what they've been doing, is massive. And I think to have the ability to see data, albeit in a form that just gives you that reassurance that the two products, the telemetry board and the control module on the BA set, are talking to each other and monitoring the way in which the team are going about their business, is hugely reassuring. Sustainability, a massive issue with the fire and rescue services now, and if a new way of working allows them to reduce their impact on the environment by putting in place more sustainable processes, has got to be a good thing. Challenge and change are two interesting points within the fire service, and the fire service is an interesting beast. That change is not something that is taken lightly. We've done it that way for the last 350 years, so why are we going to change today? One point I'd like to pick up on about testing of BA sets and what is already an interesting anomaly within the British Fire Service is that a firefighter working the on-call system will test a BA set once a week, and that set won't be tested again until after it's been worn or the following week. Whereas a whole-time firefighter, that BA set is tested twice a day, or maybe more if the sets are being used during that shift pattern. So straight away, the same piece of equipment is put through different testing regimes and protocols depending on the duty system that is being worked. Whereas with what MSA have put forward and the amount of data that can be recorded and collected by the system recording the individual that's made that test, I would look and say, does a whole-time firefighter need to test that BA set more than once a week unless it's been used operationally? Be keen to know your thoughts on that, Ted.
Thank you, Duncan. No, I think you're absolutely right. One, it starts to identify that previously there have been a range of regimes around the testing of equipment, but there doesn't seem to be any defined rationale behind the requirement for that kind of frequency. I think there was something, if I can just come in on the points that Kevin made as well. And sorry, Duncan, I'll come back to that. Around, you mentioned, Kevin, around that organisational memory and data around the breathing apparatus set and the breathing apparatus mask. Did I hear you right that actually that also provides data on individual firefighters, not just the set?
Yes, if we're measuring primarily the firefighter, irrelevant of what equipment they're using, we will have that data on the firefighter themselves. So how many hours have they been going under air over a period of time, for example?
Oh, okay, excellent. Because I think that's a really, really great addition that, as I said before, there has been paper-based copies of records where people say, I have worn breathing apparatus today. It's very subjective in terms of how hard they worked whilst they were wearing breathing apparatus. It just records a breathing apparatus wear. Now what we're saying, I think, is that not only will it record that somebody's had a wear, it's bespoke to that individual. It will record how long they were in the incident. It will record how long they were in breathing apparatus. It will record how much air they consumed, at what rate. And as you said, the cost benefit to organisations is that they can now start to structure well-being schemes and fitness levels to firefighters based on true, accurate data now. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Ted. And when I talked about fire chiefs wanting to examine those kind of questions and make decisions on, I mentioned it, benchmarks, baselines, best practices, they're able to do that now confidently, backed up by the data. Yeah. And not just an assumption.
Thanks, Ted and Kevin. One point I'd just like to touch back on, and that's looking here at the work that MSA has done in relation to the software and how that has made the equipment more intuitive and easy and fast to use for the firefighter. I think it's important to remember that technology should be seen as an assistance tool to the firefighter and not something that is dictating what the firefighter should do. So just to finish on this point, all the technology that MSA are bringing in to the field of play are designed to assist the firefighter rather than hamper. So just give us some confidence around that, please.
At MSA, we're putting the firefighter at the center of all of this technology. And just basically to repeat what you just said, that the technology is working for the firefighter and not the firefighter having to work with the technology. So they just want to jump off and go in as quickly as possible with no complications. So to have the equipment on and ready to go is, a primary, mandatory requirement around all of this technology and making it, of course, reliable in that moment. So, yeah, that is point and center of MSA's thinking. And when you start to use the M1, be it the control module or the entry control board, the level of intuitivity is just common sense, easy to use, and easy to understand. It's certainly not complicated.
That will be certainly a huge reassurance. As well, looking at the recording of the data and more specifically who's carried out the tests when and to what standard. I think having been an officer in charge of a station and looking down through the BA entry control records and the BA logbooks and seeing the missed records and where people have obviously had to sign for somebody who left a gap above when they forgot to test it. This will be hugely reassuring that paper logbooks will be a thing of the past, and it'll be a case of moving your mouse across the computer screen to see exactly who's done what and where, or more importantly, who's not done what and where. And I think that shouldn't be seen as a threat to the firefighter, because this piece of equipment is the only thing standing between them and the person in the street from doing their job.
Gents, we're nearly out of time, but one of the things about the way we're recording this is, although it's an audio podcast, I can see all the contributors and I can see Ted desperately trying to ask a question or make a comment. So before we go, Ted, just want to pick up with you. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I think I really wanted to question and make the point around increased safety of firefighters. Certainly my long career in the fire sector and my continued now in the Fire Service College is to continue to seek opportunity to improve the safety of firefighters. And I think from everything I've just heard around recording, creating organisational data, organisational memory of performance, I think the great piece of comfort that I'm seeing that could potentially come out of the new MSA set is the absolute enhancement in firefighter safety, and that's vitally important, certainly for my industry and certainly for firefighters. So I think that's vitally important. And then I think from what Kevin was saying, then what it's talking about is that this isn't a firefighter just wearing breathing apparatus and it being a tool available to them. That actually the set and the system is really, really intuitive and can provide that information to the wearer and the entry control officer, whilst also creating organisational memory. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Ted. And something we've really put into the M1 telemetry system is when listening to the customer, listening to the firefighters themselves, having good feedback from their set has been a challenge. Small icons, just black and white readouts. We've used the color coding of the very easy to understand green, yellow, and red, which pretty much we all know what that means. And that color coding, be it on your handset, be it your buddy lights, is changing color as your threshold is being breached, as in you're going from all good to a warning to red, which is effectively the alarm. And that color coding is seen on the entry control board as well, replicated there. So everybody is now talking the same language. And if I cannot even see my firefighters, my buddy, I cannot see their gauge. If their buddy lights are flashing yellow, I know they've just broken through that threshold without asking a question, without having to read their gauge. And that's situational awareness on another level.
Thanks, Kevin. This all sounds fantastic, but how will the M1 really change things for the fire and rescue service?
We would all love to have everything we want right now. And unfortunately, budgets don't allow it. So we have to plan, make provisions, and look continually to improve over the short and medium term future. What fire services don't have to do anymore is wait 10 years before they can upgrade to the next model with maybe some new modifications. And that is for a long time how it's been. It's been the traditional way. And coupled to that, technology is developing faster than ever at a phenomenal rate. And the innovation coming out of MSA right now is mind-blowing. So the M1 platform is being designed to be modular and to accommodate all future upgrades for pretty much at least the next 15 years. So meaning the M1 in 10 years' time will look a lot different to the M1 the service originally invested in. Not like where the fire service looks at the set they purchased 10 years ago today, and its specification is pretty much the same as it was on day one. And fire services all over the land have told us they don't want to do that again. So imagine having an SCBA that is only 3 years old and having to wait another 7 years before you can improve firefighter safety. No, thank you. So a fire service can invest now in the M1 that meets their specification, the specification they require right now. And then in subsequent years, they can upgrade with comms, telemetry, cloud connectivity, team talk, thermal imaging built in, firefighter tracking, bird's eye view, and have no redundancy on the M1 they originally purchased. I'm privy to knowing there are more solutions in the pipeline being developed to negate firefighters' risk that are being designed right now for integration onto the M1 platform. And some of these solutions are not very far away. So adopting the M1 now empowers the fire service to be future-proof in taking care of the well-being and safety of its firefighters by having a fully upgradable SCBA set. So that is what fire services have been asking us to do. And that is what we, MSA, have delivered on with the M1 SCBA platform.
Thanks, Kevin. This has certainly brought us up to date with MSA's vision of the future for the firefighter. Just to wrap things up, I think that design and manufacturing within the fire sector has taken a bit of a battering over the last few years. Innovation needs to be grasped. Innovation needs to be looked at consciously, especially where that innovation is focusing on firefighter safety. A firefighter is designed to help others in times of need, and where we've got the ability to use technology and innovation to make their lives easier, then I think we should grasp that. It's been hugely interesting for me to listen to both of you guys give your thoughts on where the industry is going in relation to telemetry and breathing apparatus. And all it left for me to say is thank you both very much. And Paul, it's back to you.
Well, yep, we're out of time, Duncan. But so all I can say, having listened to the three of you discuss for the last half an hour, is that I started this podcast by asking the three of you, how can innovation improve firefighter safety? And although we've only had time really to scratch the surface, I think we now know that telemetry, technology and connectivity makes the dangerous job so much safer. Thanks very much to you three of you. Duncan White, MDM Publishing's group editor, who led today's discussion, joined today by Kevin Tomkins of MSA and Ted O'Brien from the Fire Service College. So that's it for this Firecast. Thanks very much for listening and join us again soon.
Firecast is produced and presented by Paul Hutton and is an MDM Publishing podcast in association with UK Fire Magazine.